Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week's episode of VNture Podcast, along with your hosts, Taros and MR. Thank you all for tuning in, and today we have our regularly scheduled Readport episode, where we will be telling you about the visual novels we've been reading and have finished in the past month. This time it's going to be for March 2024. We're still going strong into the new year, and as such, we've both got a interesting pair of titles to talk about. So, MR, why don't you lead us off? What have you been reading for the past month?
Okay, I need to report to everybody. Yes, I finished my healing arc. I did, in fact, finish Made for Loving You. And to borrow a term from the Japanese, Iyashikei, which is for Japanese for healing, this precisely describes this title. It was very comfortable, it was very heartwarming, and it was soothing, to say the least. So it is similar in a lot of aspects to a very popular anime, Helpful Fox Senko-san. And in that anime, there was a lot of scenes of how the tired protagonist was fluffing the tail of the main heroine, and that regained his strength. In this title, I've seen so many love pillow scenes. Oh my god, it was countless. It was nice. I was surprised they had a very, I wouldn't say out of place, but it was very surprising that they had a twist of sorts. I don't want to spoil it too much, but needless to say, there is a reason behind the name and how it plays on you. So I'm like, okay, you're cheeky. Yeah, I get it. I see where this is coming from.
Interesting. So obviously the main goal is this is a very comfy story of a tired working main character who ends up with a maid suddenly living in the house, right?
Yeah, yes. And over the course of story, not only he gets that arc of finding someone who cares for him, but also that maid herself uncovers feelings, because she starts as very detached, emotionless, and with the rush of new emotions for her newfound master, she finds a purpose. And I'm like, okay, that's very cute, very wholesome. I like it.
Oh, and you get that sweet character motivation and change. And you also mentioned
exactly.
there's a few interesting plot moments as well, just enough to keep things interesting and keep the story moving.
Exactly. That there's, again, I don't want to spoil it, but there's exactly one twist to the formula, which you may or may not see coming. I was vaguely suspicious, but I wouldn't say I guessed it. The way they presented it, which is fine. Nice. It makes you look at the progress a little bit differently, from a different light. So it's like, okay, it's cute enough still, but nothing major changed. It's not like it suddenly becomes super depressing, dark, or gritty. No, it was still very wholesome, very lighthearted at places. It had those hijinks you can expect from anime of its ilk, and I'm not saying like tropes or anything, but there were a couple of, you go with your mate to the grocery stores, and there are older couples that poke fun of you, and like, you know this real, right? Those kind of themes, and they are embarrassed, they make a scene. This kind of deal.
Okay. Overall, you'd say you liked it?
Yeah. This is definitely not from my basket of typical VNs, but yeah, I liked it. I completed my healing arc, and now I can get back to my backlog.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Hopefully it helps for anyone else who might want to check it out either.
Yep, exactly. I do recommend this title for people who look for a reprieve of sorts. Innocent, quite straightforward, and a very fluffy and wholesome title.
Oh, that's sweet. It's always nice to have a little bit of variety whenever you read different visual novel titles.
True. Yeah, I agree. For better or worse, I also try titles out of my comfort zone. So, for example, I'll try some of the Ange specials. Let's call it like that, with a different success rate. But okay, this one really worked for me. Okay, I can't deny it. So that was my healing arc. What about you, Taurus?
Yeah, straightforward and simple.
Yep.
As for me, I finished reading Meteor World Actor. And unfortunately, I don't think my thoughts about it are anywhere near as simple and straightforward as yours were with Made for Loving You. I spoke about it last month, last Readport, that I was reading it. And the setting is still fantastic. It takes place in a modern fantasy, in a big sprawling city. Main character is a detective who is extremely lazy and unmotivated and such a slacker. He gets paired up with a new idealistic rookie, and of course, she butts heads with him often, and the two of them have to work together to solve cases while they both rub off a little on each other. That's a typical premise for that sort of buddy cop story. And it's a simple premise, but like I said last month, the dialogue in Meteor World Actor is fantastic. Whether it's the writing itself or the English translation, it's just a matter of the lines feeling so natural, especially when the characters talk and banter with each other, trading insults and fitting the mood of a dark detective cop story. That's easily Meteor World Actor's best aspect. You could just go on for hours just reading the dialogue and getting lost in the atmosphere the writing brings. And so, last month when I was reading it, that left a great impression. But I have since finished Meteor World Actor. Got through the common route, I read through the 4 heroine routes, and then the little epilogue bonus at the end. And unfortunately, what started off as like an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10, is now ending up like freaking down in the doldrums. Like I'd say a 6 out of 10 or something in conclusion. A main reason for that is that Meteor World Actor's story is awful. It is so disappointing that you have this great setting, this great unique fantasy, half fantasy, half realistic world. And you have a story that doesn't really go anywhere with any of it. It starts and stops with great premises and great avenues to explore. And then the story just can't ever get started or really explore it in any meaningful aspect. Especially for the characters. When you're crafting a story, there are 3 basic questions that you need to ask yourself, okay? Who is this person? What does he want? What is stopping him from getting what he wants? And that's the basics, okay? That's what serves the backbone of your story. That's what's going to be the main plot thread that goes on for the entire way. And Meteor World Actor's problem is that so many characters are just kind of sitting on their butts, not doing anything. You take a look at the main character, Ruka. He's a detective. Like I said, he's super lazy. Technically, he's a detective, but that's mostly because it pays the bills and it's easy enough when he's in the 13th department, which is just it's the landing ground for other loser oddball detectives in the agency. So obviously, he just wants to get through his broke life, making it day by day without any real trouble. Okay?
Okay.
And I described who he was. I just described what his goal is, and what's stopping him from reaching that goal. Well, now, unfortunately, he's gotten himself partnered with an upstart rookie who is badgering him to be all idealistic and stuff. So there's that friction. That's what serves as the conflict. And we
Yeah.
read the story because we want to see how it's going to get resolved. Is he going to become a pretty good person and put his latent detective skills to good use? Or is he going to continue being a bitter middle-aged dude who just makes... I guess you could say who corrupts a young rookie's dreams.
Huh?
And so that's one character arc. That's for the main character. The problem is when you get to all the side characters and all the heroines. You have Clarice, the rookie elf, who said that her reason for joining the agency is because she wants to find the detective who saved her life and who inspired her to become a police officer. So I described to you, what she's like. I described that's her goal. That's what she wants to do. And then we get to the part where, well, what's stopping her from chasing her dream of finding this guy? Nothing. She just doesn't ever do it. So there's this disconnect between what she says she wants to do and the fact that, 20 hours later into the common route, I haven't seen her actually trying to investigate this at all. So there's now this disconnect between what what we're being told is different from what the reader is seeing, And without going too much into spoilers, it's like that for so many of the other heroines and the other characters. Like Mel, who's being hunted down by assassins, who's, I won't describe what she's like, but, that's her problem. She obviously has her own goals. And what does she do about it? Just kind of sit around and wait for things to get resolved. Then you've got like Chiffon, who's another character who, again, is just kind of going through her life, trying to make it day by day while she's broke. And she doesn't really have a goal. It's just get through life. And so there's no obstacles and there's no real story. There's no real conflict about it. So she's just sitting around. Main character runs into her every so often and is like, oh, hey, what's going on? Hey, just another day, another dollar. Oh, yeah, okay, bye.
I have a question listening to you, right?
Yes.
The way you described routes, the way you describe characters, the side characters, is there a true end, or by extension, maybe the question is there a central conflict? Because the way you say and describe this title, it seems to me there is no sense of urgency of any kind, and that slows down the pace of the story into, they live. And thus they have days, and they live those days off like they would do normally, right?
Yeah, I totally... I see what you're saying.
So my question is there no overarching plot to tie it all together? There is no... I just don't know even how to pose this question.
yes, that's it.
Is there no glue?
That's an interesting topic. Let me explore that a little.
Okay.
This is, a buddy cop story, and usually how these sorts of things go about is that you have individual cases, and that's how Meteor World Actor does it. Like chapter 1 is about a specific case that they hear about and they investigate and they have it tied up. And then chapter 2 is a new case with, new characters, new material, just like, an episodic series, you could say. And when you have this sort of material, you have to still build up to something in the end. You either have to have the tiny crumbs leading up to something bigger in the background, or you have to serve up like some big bad, especially at the end, so that it feels like this is still one big cohesive story building in the background. Meteor World Actor kind of does that by teasing connections to, I'll just say, the cult and shadowy background details. However, when you get into the multiple heroine routes, a lot of this police work stuff just falls off a cliff, and it gets dedicated entirely to the one heroine. Like I mentioned, Chiffon, who has really nothing going for her. You get into her route, and it's just kind of some little gag about helping her fall asleep, and then a romance arc gets shoved in because it's a Arrowgate, and we have to have a romance so that we can jam 4 H scenes into the last chapter. And then we get an ending where just things are happening and the plot just moves in nonsensical directions because it has nothing to work with. And then it leads to it being very unsatisfied. A lot of people have said that Meteor World Actor has open endings. And that's not really true. It's not that they're open endings, it's they're really not an ending at all, because nothing's been concluded. There isn't even a storied plotline to follow. It's like Chiffon is still pretty much the same person she was at the end of the VN as she was at the beginning. A few weird things have happened, but I don't care about it at all because it has nothing to do with anything. And then on the other hand, you've got someone like Mel, who introduces like an entirely massive new set of content that could honestly be its own visual novel. It has to do with like global politics and royalty and all sorts of assassins. And then, like I said, they only have 1 chapter to make this heroine route come together, so you have to introduce these concepts, you have to blitz through like the normal dramatic build-up, go through a climax, and then make up some ending, all while you have to force together the relationship and shove in all the H scenes. So instead, everything that happens involving Mel feels forced and fake in a way. It's one of those things where it's like, I like my stories when they are clear-cut, when they're focused, when they have a defined conflict. And Meteor World Actor is one that I felt like there were cracks in the foundation starting to show even halfway through the common route, in the way that several characters just got left hanging, waiting on nothing. And honestly, I do think the endings, or the lack thereof, pay for it a lot. There's very little foundation set up so that when it's time to go into a heroine's route, there's really nothing to work with. Getting back to what you said, once you go through the 3 heroines routes, there's Mel, there's Chiffon, and there's Komachi. Oh, actually, wait a second. I haven't talked about Komachi's route. Komachi's route is actually pretty good because it does the things I talked about. Her route continues off of like chapter 4 and what that case was about. So like I said, it feels like that this is the big main plot line that's running through all of Meteor World Actor. So Komachi kind of, takes chapter 4 and extends it and make it feel like a big deal. But, it does. It's a good thing. Not to mention, that route felt the most natural to me. And so when you have stuff like the relationship blooming, and when you have, the cult aspects rising to the forefront, it feels like it's actually paying off material that we saw in earlier chapters. In fact, we even get an ending which is very much an open ending. I don't have any problems with how Komachi's route ended because it led to a climax that fit with the whole conflict that was brewing in the foreground. And then, we get character growth out of Ruka, the main character, out of Komachi as well. The world is a different place at the end of Komachi's route than it was at the beginning. I really appreciated that there was still some sort of conclusion, even if it was very open. In fact, this was an open ending that served, Meteor World Actor well, because this is the sort of thing that could be a sequel hook, or you could leave it be, or you could always revisit the character motivations and whatnot. So Komachi's route was great. Clarice, the rookie, has her route that's locked, that is basically the true end. And unfortunately, this is another problem where there's just wasn't an ending at all. There's a new arc, and there's so much material that could have been used, and again, it just gets rushed through because I don't know if the story even knew what it was doing. We come back, about a new case, there's new villains and characters, and things happen, and then Meteor World Actor just ends. Again, it's not the sort of thing where it's an open ending, it's just a matter of the script stops, and the credits roll, And it's hard to say if anything is any different than how things started at the beginning of the visual novel, so it makes me wonder, like, what the hell was the point of reading this?
I mean, if you think about it, if you think about mysteries in a broader scope, right? And stories pertaining to mysteries. If you try to blend mystery, as in there is a central unknown, because mystery, right? You need to solve, and then you blend it with a template for multiple character endings, you can end up in a scenario that inhibits the worst kind of the character routes, and that is whenever you enter a route, everything else disappears. You know the meme, if you enter a character route, every other character just vanishes. Goodbye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that also affects the central mystery, because the focus on the character takes precedence over the central mystery, but then you have that problem exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And now you add on top of that, if side character or that character's motivation is weak enough and undefined, as in, oh yeah, I exist, then the story goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty much exactly how Chiffon's route goes. The one who's just has nothing going on in her life, no real direction, and she's the one who has a sleeping problem. It's very easy to end up on Chiffon's route the first time you play, if you're running blind. And it is such a tone shift between being a detective and trying to solve these cases and having these serious drama moments and having all your banter with your partner and all your coworkers. And then suddenly you're like in a gag comedy VN with this one chick as you try to solve her sleeping problems. And it's just like it forgets everything about, Claris, about the coworkers, about the 13th Division and whatnot. It's exactly like you said, how just every other character just drops off the face of the world.
I mean, yeah, the way you describe it, even if there exists like a central mystery or allusion to some sort of organization, shadowy, Illuminati, whatever, as long as there is no urgency to dealing with that, you can just put it into back burner and forget about it. And maybe this is why the combination of central mystery and character routes, in my opinion, and I have to bring him back. Sorry, I have to. Okay, it's out of my hands now. I think it worked really well in Baldur's Sky, because you find yourself in the story always searching for the MacGuffin that exists, right? And at the center of it all, the MacGuffin is surrounded by three distinctive perspective or factions, whatever you call it. You have a mercenary approach, a government approach, or a corporate approach. And you always find yourself in that event from those three perspectives. And now, exploring character routes pits you in a different perspective, affiliated, or maybe even not, with one of those factions. Because it is so important, that MacGuffin, and the event to which you all slowly go to is so important you cannot escape it. You have no escape velocity from the story. You cannot just switch the route to the side character and say goodbye to central story. I'm out there exploring other characters. I'll get to you on the true route. No, there is no escaping. The central story is so urgent, so important, regardless of which character you pick, you will be orbiting around that story element. You will get to it. Mm-hmm. You are in its gravital pull.
Exactly. It's like you said, there is that central story element, and that's the focus of the visual novel. Even if you go down into other routes, you still gotta realize that this is the story you're trying to tell since day one. And so even if you're just trying to romance another heroine and make her the focus of the story, you still have the story that's been building up in the past 15 hours or so,
Yeah, and given how you described this title, and given your love for murder mystery deductions, maybe Nanaira reincarnation would be your your title, because it's that there is a central murder mystery to solve. You are a detective, and even if there are multiple routes to explore, there is still a central detective case to solve. Even if there are other smaller cases that may or may not tie into the big mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, all it comes down, you try to solve that one that started it all.
Yeah, I know I'm ragging on Meteor World Actor a lot. It had so many things I was looking forward to. It had great potential. One aspect of it that I really appreciated is the fact that the main character has his own defined personality. Like I mentioned, he's a slob, he's lazy, he's got a smart mouth, and argues with his superiors constantly. And so some people have complained that, he really comes across as an asshole and they make it reading to the end unbearable. And I see where they're coming from. It's, when you have so many VNs of a very plain, goody two-shoes high school main character boy, and it's like you get this variety here with Ruka. It's like, oh, this is so much better. This is a breath of fresh air. I get there were times where, I was really rolling my eyes at his antics too, but still, I'm happy for the variety. I'm also extremely happy is that he has 3 other male friends. Maybe friends is too much of a strong word, but 3 rivals, 3 comrades who he originally... Frenemies, I guess you could say, yeah. Varying degrees of other people who joined the police agency who also wanted to be detectives. And it's very interesting seeing Ruka and also where his friends have gone in their life. You've got Ikta, who kept climbing the corporate ladder, who's straight-laced and deadly serious. You got Strykos, who quit and went into the private industry, who's extremely charming, and he utilizes his connections and intel gathering. And then you've got Sosuke, who is also his co-worker in the 13th Division, but he's much more of a lone wolf, and he's also deadly serious, always doing his own thing, and he's got his reasons for it. And it's really interesting seeing their motivations and seeing how their actions speak louder than their words. It's one of those things where, it's show, don't tell. That's the basic #1 rule of writing, You're supposed to demonstrate characters' personalities by their thoughts and actions and words, not just from the text on the screen telling you what you're supposed to feel about them.
Yeah, it sounds so sad when you mention the show, don't tell. In the same segment, you talked about a character that is defined by saying she wants to find someone, and she doesn't do it. Doesn't start the search.
Exactly. That's another reason. One second.
Title keeps reminding you. Yeah, she wants to, but she never do.
To be honest, It doesn't even remind us that often. It kind of comes up once, and then the issue.
Dang.
Yeah, the issue kind of gets dropped until it's her route, and the plot decides, okay, this is what we're going to focus on, just like with the other heroines. But like I said, with the main character and his other, frenemies, like you said, that's it's a shining example of how great the English translation is and the writing, and how it's very different how they all act with each other and the relationships they have. Sometimes it's frosty, sometimes it's casual, sometimes it's with a healthy dose of respect. But, it's a huge step in illustrating just what they think of each other. You don't often see that in too many other visual novels. I mean, sure, you have the main character and his best bro, or maybe you have a rival, but when you have, very delicate social relationships, especially when positions of power are involved, it adds so many wrinkles to a lot of what would normally be otherwise bland scenes. I thought that really elevated, Meteor World Actor.
Mm-hmm.
If it had a solid foundation and kept the storylines running from the first 3 chapters or so, Meteor World Actor would be probably a 9 out of 10 in my book. And I use the whole scale. That's really high. I was really hoping the best for Meteor World Actor. But like I said, about halfway through, it's like the flaws start becoming apparent, and the heroine routes, they just really crash and burn. There's so much potential that could have been used.
Yeah, I feel for you.
Apparently, there is a fan disc, but the fan disc basically ignores the events in Meteor World Actor, and it kind of has two side routes of two other heroines. So once again, that's just kind of emblematic of Meteor World Actor, where it just kind of keeps chasing new half-baked theories without really developing anything or following any sort of plotline. And it just leaves a whole trail of broken premises in its wake.
It's like the more you describe it, especially when you mention FanDisc, it's like, yeah, but FanDisc don't solve this problem. You would probably need some sort of sequel.
Yeah, but at least you could try.
Okay, fine, you could, although it's just weird. The more you talk about that Meteor World Actor, the more I remind myself of other titles recently that are similar in vein. So, for example, Psychopath, something that came to my mind, because it's, also the cop story. Also, you have an organization, and also you have or at least in Psychopath's case, you have a central plot you want to crack the case of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is something that Psychopath benefited because it didn't really have character routes. It had a different endings depending how you balance your mental state in regards to the case, because that's Psychopath for you. But they didn't really veer off the case due to side characters getting a spotlight, right? And now relating to potential, I weep about Ayusenki a lot. The title had a lot of potential with exploring different parts of the world and gathering a lot of mythical and legendary armors, reading the legends of all the heroes that get the fate treatment, as it were. But ultimately, the story was such a snooze fest. I'm like, no, don't do it to me.
That's a shame. Sorry to hear about your Ayuku-senki.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if I'll check out FanDisc for Meteor World Actor, or even if someday a sequel comes out, I don't know if I want to get burned twice. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Someday, maybe.
Maybe. It sucks anyway. Oh well.
But yes, that's what I've been up to this month anyways.
Yeah, so for the last segment for today, I'll briefly mention, because this is something like, oh my god, 2 days ago or something like that. But yes, they finally delivered the Kickstarter for Venus Blood. FanDisc has been finished and the discs have been delivered. And as much as I wanted to sit down for Amatsutsumi, I gotta, okay? Venus Blood is here. It's an all hands on deck situation. I need to know it first.
Yay! FanDisc released! Oh baby!
Yeah.
Cause for celebration. Yeah. All right, MR.
Exactly. Yeah, this is an emergency situation. All backlog is on hold. I need to finish this.
But you just started? Is that right?
I just started it a couple days before this recording. Yeah. I have no opinions yet. I have to appreciate that they did not abandon FanDisc when it comes to kickstarting the international release. And successfully, this is a second Kickstarter attempt they did, the Venus Blood series, about the FanDisc. So yeah, I'll keep backing those if they keep doing bangers, okay?
Haha. All right, looking forward to it. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully you enjoy.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, then
this is all from me.
And on that note, we'll be wrapping up this month's Readport. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and maybe you'll check out these titles in the future.
And thanks for all our listeners. what have you been listening to and reading last month? And with that, venture out.
Venture out.